Good evening. Ranter's back to going to get to another rambling diatribe of the news of the day. And this was supposed to be a interactive conversation concerning Kamala Harris and whether or not she is a DEI hire or not, but that interactive conversation seems to not going to be happening. So now this is just another me ranting out into the void, as I do in my rants, this one-way conversation, because and according to the time, only 11 o'clock at night, so people could be around to actually watch it or pay attention or show up, and and I wouldn't go and scurry away 2 minutes after they arrive. But be that as it may, so instead of a back and forth on this topic, I decided to, vent my opinion upon this, since it seems to be, it seems to be the thing to do, as opposed to having a conversation. So, what I want to talk about is, the rise of Kamala Harris as being the presumptive nominee for the presidency of the United States, and the wonderful, dazzling spray of reactions and criticisms and so forth of this coming up from the Fox News talking heads and various people who just instead of going after what I would consider to be legitimate criticisms of Kamala Harris, which I believe there are, whether they're factual or not, they are things that are legit enough to have a conversation about, especially for her time as a DA. But no, we're not doing that. We're not having these conversations that could be easily done, that, Tulsi Gabbard had nailed her on during their debate in 2020, for the 2020 elections. But we're not discussing the whatever legitimate concerns that people would have. Half the stuff that are the concerns about, I don't think Republicans would want to bring up, because if they believe she was too tough in her time prosecuting, especially prosecuting those of people of color, they kind of like that thing, so maybe they wouldn't want to get too hard on that, so they'd find out another way of criticizing her. Actually, I did hear from a montage that Jon Stewart did on The Daily Show of all these various things that they came up with her, with their criticisms of her. One sort of back to back, that she was too soft as a DA. She just let people just go, and then she was too hard as a DA. Make up your mind. But I think at this point, people are just throwing darts, trying to find something that will stick to be the trigger tagline of Kamala Harris. And the one thing that we've been hearing is that this dismissal of, she's just a DEI hire. She's just a DEI hire. You see, talking heads on Fox and the various other right-wing organizations and media saying this, and then politicians are saying that just they're walking by as they're being interviewed, that she's just a DEI hire. Okay. So, DEI hiring is actually something I've been noticing as kind of the buzzword of the week. And for those who do not know it, DEI means diversity, equity, and inclusion. DEI refers to the practice and policies intended to support people who come from varying backgrounds and give them the resources they need to thrive in the workplace. DEI framework takes into account factors like race, gender, and sexual orientation, so teams can find ways to help employees from marginally groups succeed. Oh my god, that is such a totally fucking horrible thing, isn't it? Isn't it? But then again, the DEI, as it's being said now, which is like a slur, is from the same people who think it's a slur to talk about critical race theory and being woke. Everything we don't like is woke. Anyone that we don't like with a different skin pigmentation, they're there because they're DEI hires. Okay. Now let's kind of explain something. Historical context, okay? If you're going to say that Kamala Harris was a DEI hire because of her being a person of color, being of ethnic origins, of being born of both a Jamaican ancestry and a Asian ancestry, and you wanted her to and she was hired, or she was appointed, or she was picked by Joe Biden for her to be the type of person that would attract the black vote? Yeah. I would say that would be one of the contributing factors of that. Yes. Now, the way that people are framing her being a DEI hire is in that kind of dismissive, smug, behavioral attitude that they're giving to her, that she doesn't know what she's doing, that she's not up to the task, she's only there because of the color of her skin. Okay. Kamala Harris graduated with a BA from Howard University. She graduated then from the University of California for Juris Doctrine. So she got that, the JD. She was a district attorney. She was attorney general to California. She was a senator. So she was picked to be vice president. Oh dear God. She wasn't picked out from the parking lot from Walmart. That she actually has credentials. That actually makes her makes sense for her to be there. And for her being picked in order to attract the black vote, because she's a DEI hire, well, since she has the credentials of actually knowing what she's talking about and knowing what she's doing, yeah, fine. She will be there to attract a vote, but she actually isn't bumping into the furniture, and she's actually knowing what she's doing. Now, let's put this in historical context for those people who just want to go, hey, DEI hire, she was over there to get the blacks. Historical context, okay? I'm going to jump around in history for you, just for this. Do you know why President, or soon-to-be President, John Fitzgerald Kennedy picked Lyndon Baines Johnson to be his vice presidential pick in his campaign? Do you? Why would a Massachusetts liberal Irish Catholic like John Kennedy, in the time of the early to mid-60s, would want to have a vice president who is a relatively conservative Democrat from Texas, so that he would be able to attract the Southern Democratic vote? So, in this context, Lyndon Johnson is a DEI hire for this context. Let's go into recent history. Why did soon-to-be President Donald Trump pick Mike Pence to be his vice president? Why would a well-known, entertaining, plutocratic hedonist want to have as his vice president a well-known conservative Republican Christian to help cement his cult-like status amongst the evangelical Christians who then deified him when he became president? Mike Pence is a DEI hire. Let's go a little farther in history. Why did President Abraham Lincoln, at the start in his campaign for the second term, pick Andrew Johnson to be his vice president pick in the midst of the Civil War? Why did the well-known first Republican president, who was at the helm of the Union versus the Confederacy in a Civil War, why would he pick Andrew Johnson from Tennessee Democrat? A state that is actually, at the time, a Confederate state. And many battles of the Civil War happened in that state. Many known Confederate generals fought in that state. Why would he call? Why would he pull him? Perhaps to try to garner some southern votes for into the second term, so that maybe there would be a voice along his that would call out and plead for people to listen to the better angels of their nature. Which, ironically enough, after Lincoln died, Andrew Johnson was a little bit more too Southern sympathizing than he was, and he did spend much of his corrupt term as president trying to undo a lot of what the Union had won post the Civil War, which is one of the reasons why he got impeached. But nonetheless, at the time of the campaign, Andrew Johnson was a DEI hire then, isn't he? The point being is I'm going through all these presidentials and vice presidential picks. We can even say from Bill Clinton, from Al Gore. While Bill Clinton was a bit of a centrist, he did garner and capture the imaginations of those who were liberal-leaning. However, in order to maintain that balance in the center for the centrists, he picked Al Gore, who at the time, let's not forget, was also a bit of a conservative Democrat, who him and his wife had a lovely little campaign to go after rap lyrics and heavy metal lyrics. But nonetheless, he picked somebody in order to attract a certain segment, a demographic, of people to draw them in to get hired. All of these people, including Andrew Johnson, all had the credentials. Why did, in the last of his term, Franklin Delano Roosevelt pick a relative unknown from the Midwest, Harry Truman, from Congress? Why did this wealthy, Rockefeller-esque New Yorker pick a simple man from the Midwest? In a time of them still trying to get out of the Great Depression, and in a time that we were getting into World War II. He was a DEI hire as well. So, going back to Kamala Harris, if you're going to claim that she's a DEI hire, well, the historical context, yeah, she is. But if you're going to say that with derision, despite the credentials she does have, then your biases are showing just a little bit there. As I said, if you have legitimate concerns for Kamala Harris running for president, consider her past as a DA, that are valid to have these conversations about, then lead with that. But don't lead that she is a DEI hire, that's all, and say that she's a ding-dong or that she's not smart, which is, Trump surrogate John Kennedy from the Senate was saying that to Neil Cavuto, and Neil Cavuto was trying to get him to sound like a mammal. And he just, despite the fact that Neil Cavuto brought up the polls of how Kamala Harris is either dead even with Trump or is ahead of Trump in swing states and definitely ahead of Trump in likability, for Christ's sakes, we were all worried, we were all stressing out on what was going to happen with Trump after his assassination attempt and after the conventions, that he was just steamrolling, it was a rocket to the top. He never got out of 40% of likability, even with the boost of being all manly and macho and rah, 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 fight, fight, fight in front of the swarm of Secret Service agents that weren't doing their fucking job. But somehow only 40%. See, people still hate him and don't want him back. But if you have legitimate concerns, they should lead with lead with those legitimate concerns. But they're not. They're doing this bullshit. And not only this bullshit, but even worse bullshit. Sick fucking bullshit. Which I hear that somehow is fair game in politics. Oh, a fair game because, Trump's sexual history you all talk about and the Bill Clinton's history. Okay. Yeah, Kamala Harris had a relationship with somebody who assisted her in her career. Wow. Yeah. Which is a slipped her way to the top. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That He didn't really, first of all, didn't really get her to the top, and that kind of ran its course, and then the rest of her career went on unimpeded, unassisted by anybody else. But that is supposed to be the same as when we talk about Trump's sexual history. That's all fair game. First of all, we don't want to talk about Trump's sexual history. The only thing that we're bringing up is sexual misconduct, him being legally liable for sexual assault, which is a little bit different than having a consensual relationship with somebody. Fingers and all. But somehow that's the same for certain people, right? Or how people were going after her for being childless. Somehow that is a contributing factor of people's derision for her, that she has not bared a child. I could have sworn, checking my flesh tone Crayola, peach, and apricot skin pigmentation here, I'm checking my watch upon this is 2024, right? I could have sworn it was. Not like the early 90s when people made a big deal out of Bill Clinton and his relationship with Jennifer Flowers, or what was going on with Paula Jones, and certainly what was going on with Monica Lewinsky. You have to remember the context of the time period of it being the early 90s. We were just getting out of George Herbert Walker Bush's run at the White House, while he was probably one of the most popular presidents at the end of the 20th century. People should not skip on GHW. But GHW, who was also the vice president to Ronald Reagan, and for that whole time period, we all had the moral majority, and Christian conservatism was in power. Probably one of the reasons why that for the first 5 years of Reagan's run until the second of his administrations, he never said the word AIDS, because we wouldn't want to discuss AIDS or make that a thing while it was only gay people that was dying from it, right? Until people got blood transfusions and people were bisexual, and all of a sudden, straight people got it too. I guess we have to talk about it now. But at the time, we were just getting out of that moral majority period, so Bill Clinton was having an affairs, or he's accused of having affairs? No! We can't have that in the White House. Somehow, by the time 2016, when you had a twice cheating on husband of many wives, that half of his children are the products of his multiple wives, some of which probably was from cheating, somehow that was fine by 2016. So we kind of got over our Puritan pearl-clutching, no, that's terrible, feeling. See, we're only bringing up sexual issues with Trump for the misconduct. We don't even give a shit that he had his time with Stormy Daniels. We care about him paying her hush money and shuffling money around that was campaign money that wasn't supposed to. If it was his own money, we wouldn't give a shit and we wouldn't hear about it. But be that as it may. Somehow, but we still wouldn't care about that. We care about him forcing himself upon E.J. Carroll. Yeah, we should worry about that. We should be concerned about that for him being a president of the United States now, and that was his history. Should that be something that we'd be impeached for? No, because that didn't happen during his presidency. Nor so, though, I don't know, the thing that happened in the 90s, with at the time, little Katie. That no one in the media, even in 2016, wanted to talk about, even to debunk it, where he was accused and went to court twice of him forcefully raping a 13-year-old girl. She dropped the suit once, reapplied the suit again, dropped it again because for fear of her family. Shall I go through the quotations of what she said in her testimony under oath? To see Those are the oranges to Kamala Harris' apple of her just being free sexually with her relationships, of her having consensual relations with another person. She slept her way to the top. Yeah, that's the fair game stuff, right? How'd that get her? But that's not even the worst part. No. Well, let's go into the Laura Loomer shit. That she was so loose and she was so sexually active that she had so many abortions. That's why she doesn't have children. If anyone thinks that is fair game, this is politics, and that's fair game. You might have to look a little bit yourself. Especially for those who think that they are being moral and Christian at the same time while bringing that shit up and thinking that is fucking fair game. You should be offended that that's brought up. For you know that there are legit issues that can be brought up to counter Kamala Harris. But those are the things that are being brought up? Some far-fetched nonsense? And gee, I wonder why that's brought up so readily, so eagerly, so easily for people when it's Kamala Harris. Is it easy to do that because she's a woman? And that's how you're supposed to attack a woman that is trying to run for the highest office in the land? They couldn't quite go after Hillary Clinton for sexual picadillos, now could they? So they did for everything else, because she was the most hated woman in 30 years. Surprised that she didn't win. No, we're gonna go after... You're all gonna go after Kamala Harris for this shit. This petty, narcissistic, misogynist, smug, racial bullshit. She's a DEI hire. As I explained, no more or less a DEI hire than Mike Pence, Harry Truman, Al Gore, Lyndon Johnson, and I can go down the line. I can go down to George Washington picking John Adams. Because at the time, George Washington, from the newly minted state of Virginia, wanted to make sure the northern states had representation, so he chose John Adams from Massachusetts. DEI Hire. Because, and John Adams had the credentials, so it was worth it. As it was worth it for Andrew Johnson, as it was worth it for Harry Truman, Lyndon Johnson, Al Gore, Mike Pence, Kamala Harris. Because they were worthy of the spot, they were worthy of the role, and if they could bring a democratic or demographic shift that can garner interest for the people they want to garner interest for, then that's all the better. But we're not hearing that this is this hiring. We're hearing the derision of it, the slur of it, the dismissal. And remember, we were hearing about DEI hires in congressional hearings, to go against the anti-woke, because somehow the definition of woke, once again, had added more added addendums from it being just something about being consciously aware of social justice and pointing it out. That's woke. Oh no! Now it's woke is just like anyone that's not a white male, or as any context or any context that has anything to do with the respect of anybody who is not white, straight, male. Oh, that's woke. Yeah. For so many heterosexual men, you're all fucking pearl clutching. But here we are. We've been hearing about that. So DEI is just this week's version of woke and critical race theory. once again, people will think that critical race theory is just super awful, that things are being taught in the schools, which it's not, but being taught in the schools is woke stuff. And don't forget the drag queens. Woo, scary. Look at the drag queens at the Olympics. Oh, they're mocking the Last Supper. No, I didn't realize Dionysus was there, straddled over the table. That is an example of people wanting to be offended, wanting to find something to be offended of, so they can point their fingers and be righteously offended. That offends me. The opening ceremony of the Olympic Games named for the Olympic events, named from Greek history, named in honoring and veneration of the Greek mythology, and the ceremony is from a French painter, because it's also in Paris, concerning the celebration of Dionysus. And Dionysus is the god of wine of the Greeks, and somehow has nothing to do with your Christian mythology. Oh, excuse me, Christian religion. Yes, it's not mythology. No. As opposed to when, Dionysus, which is Greek mythology, even though at the time there was actual clergies that worshipped Dionysus, because Dionysus and all the Olympians and that polytheistic pantheon was a religion that people were worshipping. But that is people want to be offended. They'll find something to be offended of, and then they go, I'm offended. Now, I'm not going to be too long more on this. Beat a dead horse too much. Unless I want to turn it into glue, I have nothing else really to say beyond a few more points. Now, people that bring up the Tulsi Gabbard debate with her, and how Tulsi Gabbard pretty much won it, and that's legit. She won it. Kamala Harris did not do a good job on that night. If that's the case, that she's going to be bad at debate, then why doesn't Trump want to debate her? Why is he flip-flocking like a trout on the dock over, I'm going to debate her, not going to debate her, I'm going to debate her, I'll debate her anytime, no, I don't want to debate her, I'm going to wait till after the convention, I really want to debate her, but even said recently, last days, is, I want to debate, but people have seen me, and there's no reason to debate her. I mean, she's dumb as a rock. She's dumb as a stone. What would be the point? I want to debate her, but I don't want to debate her. So, Kamala Harris said that, she's going to go to the ABC September 10th debate anyway. She will be there. And if Trump wants to not be there, then she will debate an empty podium. Something that Ossoff did versus David Perdue, when David Perdue decided not to show up. And who won that election again? So he's not going to show up. And my question about that is, why not? I thought she had such a weak performance that he would just destroy her. I thought this was going to be a landslide for Trump because it's Kamala Harris. A little tidbit about that, because as I said in the last video, I don't really pay attention to polls until we get into November, until we get to the actual election day. But I do want to, frankly, point out the polling that was done in one of the counties in Michigan, where Kamala Harris got the vote from from the black community. DEI Hire, hey! And RFK Jr. got some of the black vote. We didn't get... we got nothing? Zero? Donald Trump. There's your landslide. Again, doesn't matter. It's just an interesting little tidbit. And as much as people want to eagerly dismiss Kamala Harris and the sugar high people are having with people are hoping for her, I can understand. At some point we get to come down, and then we'll see where the head off is. But it does show that Donald Trump doesn't want to debate someone who people think he would easily destroy. There's an issue with that. There's an issue where thinking that she is so unlikable, and yet two groups, what was it? The white women for Harris, they had a big, massive Zoom call and broke Zoom and raised her millions and millions and millions of dollars. White dudes for Kamala Harris raised millions and millions of dollars for her. Within the first day of Joe Biden stepping down for the run for a second term and Kamala Harris being endorsed by him, within that first day, over $100 million went to Kamala Harris in donations, in fundraising. Now, I exist in the world of reality. Some people should try it. I do know that this is not an easy win. This is not going to be a layout. This is going to be close as always. And Trump is a known commodity. And it will be an uphill battle for Kamala Harris. But the one drawback for Trump is that he is a known commodity. And what have we known for the past 4 years of Donald Trump since never conceding to his loss? That it was stolen. Spent 4 years talking about it being dumb stolen. Inciting people to go fight like hell on January 6th. Or else you won't have a country anymore. You better fight like hell. And they did. Never stopped. Even there. Even after the assassination attempt and people were all so impressed of him going out there, fight, while he's surrounded by security, people don't get that he's wanting there to be a reprisal. He would want people to go and fight like hell for him. And what would that fight look like if it was Joe Biden or now Kamala Harris to go to a rally or go to the DNC? Thomas Creeks, or whatever the hell, Tommy Boy, had more than an agenda of killing Donald Trump. He had names and informations of Joe Biden, of Hakeem Jeffries, Fannie Williams, the location of the DNC convention. As far as we're knowing right now, his attempting on Trump had nothing to do with politics. He wanted to make a name for himself. He put it on the Steam. It was his premiere. His coming out party was his shooting at Trump. He actually expected he was going to survive that. But, maybe he had good reason to, because Secret Service fucked up that one just royally. As a layman who doesn't know shit about the Secret Service, I know better than that. And I'm a nobody. But Trump hasn't even figured out a good nickname for Kamala Harris. Other than mispronouncing her name, calling her Kamala. Because let's remember the Ugandan giant from pro wrestling, right? Let's just do a split screen, because I've seen people do that. Yeah, that's fucking funny. Whatever. But every time I see someone do that, and doing their ha-has, I'll just say, he'd still be better than Trump. But he hasn't struck a nerve of anything, and he seems to be faltering. People, even the turd blossom himself, Karl Rove, came on to Fox News, and he did a little board, and he talked about how Trump was looking like he's subservient, or what's the word? I can't pronounce it right now, but he's lower than Kamala Harris. So, what's been Trump trying to say here? First he's dumb as a rock. She's completely radical. She just wants to open the border because she's a border czar and everything, and border czar don't exist. Kamala Harris had nothing to do with the border other than the diplomacy that she was doing with the triangle being between the United States, Central America, and Mexico to try to assist diplomatically how to make it better for these countries so that people don't need to come over the border. That's her role. She had nothing to do with the border. Anyone was a border czar would be Mayorkas in Homeland Security. But no, we need to say that she's the border czar so everything on the border can be her fault. Okay, yeah. But there's that, which I just debunked. And she's dumb as a rock. Oh, she's totally a Marxist. I don't want there to be it's not going to be a Marxist country if you vote for me. Because, she's a Marxist. Is she? Evidence. Prove it. Other than just saying it. Where? Nothing? Thought not. Let's see. Oh, she's lying. Lying Kamala, I call her that. So I think you all should call her that because I call her that. Lying about what? Oh, what was that? From this year? Nothing? Okay. So he can have all the nicknames he wants. We'll give him credit that some of the nicknames for other people, they kind of stuck because you can just... Okay, that's a little funny. Marxist... lying, just things are pulling out his rather massive ass. But that's all he has. He has names. He has name calling, and his bitching and moaning about him. But just like the E.J. Carroll case, he'll stand outside of the courtroom. And he will whine about never meeting this woman. It never happened. This is a hoax. Blah, blah, blah. But once he was inside, he never took the stand to say under oath any of that shit. No, he didn't. Much like anything else, he didn't. He says shit. So all his little gerbils of those that serve him, the sycophants will prop him up and say, yeah, you say that, that's absolutely right. She's a ding-dong, yeah, whatever. And then his supporters will clap like seals because they're being entertained by him. They don't give a shit if that... People know he lies to them and they're entertained by it. Somebody on my social group that I admin was saying, well, he's totally gonna. No, it's all fake news. He's totally gonna debate her. Right? He said he would. This is all lies. I'm not hearing la 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 la. When we even produced at the Trump campaign, his special the special things that he wasn't going to debate her, at least till after the DNC. The next debate was September 10th, but whatever. It was just after the DNC, but still not going to do it. But still, when we bring that up, it's still... No, I can't hear. See no evil, hear no evil. Let me humbly remind you once again is that the results of the 2020 election was that it wasn't that so many people voted for Joe Biden because they liked Joe Biden over Trump. They didn't vote for him for that. They didn't want to vote for Biden. What they wanted to do was vote against Donald Trump. And he lost by millions. It's not about liking the candidate. These days, it's not about liking the candidate. It's about disliking someone so much that anyone will do. And the anyone that did in 2020 was Joe Biden. If you don't think Kamala Harris is so popular, if you don't think she's actually popular, that even though she filled an arena today in Atlanta, You don't think she's popular, even though she has garnered millions, hundreds of millions of money in donations, more so than the actual war chest that Biden has from the donations from donors that Trump was whining about, that Kamala Harris shouldn't have that, even though when Joe Biden got that money and donations and the delegates and so forth, that came on the ticket of Biden and Harris, so therefore Harris has every right to inherit that war chest. She was part of that ticket. She is the ticket now. And a humble reminder for those of the same vein, for those who voted for Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley, who ran and at the end of her campaign finally said something boo about Donald Trump, but nonetheless had garnered support to be a significant echo of maybe competition for Trump, even though Trump never waddled his way on any debate stage with the other Republicans. And what's so upset with Nikki Haley is that he confused Nikki Haley with Nancy Pelosi for January 6th, but be that as it may, because we wouldn't want to bring up Trump's decline or anything. Shh, no. But then when Nikki Haley fell out, and despite all the stuff she said about Trump, finally, she gave in and kissed the ring, and then handed up her delegates and swore and begged her delegates to now vote for Trump. These people voted for Nikki Haley because they did not want to vote for Donald Trump. So what do some of them do? Made themselves their own group. Haley voters for Harris. And she was totally upset about it, that she wants them to cease and desist. Don't do that. They're not ceasing. They're not desisting. They're going to support Kamala Harris. Because the same theory still holds. More people hate Donald Trump. They do not want to see 4 more years of Donald Trump. They voted for Nikki Haley to prevent it. And when Nikki bent the knee to Master Trump, these voters went to Kamala Harris. Because again, they don't want to vote for Donald Trump. Especially a Donald Trump that now has presidential immunity from the Supreme Court. Clarified that any official act he'll be completely immune to do. And we can't even talk about it. Shh. Well, President Biden, this is the last thing I'm going to say. President Biden appeared and reminded people he's still president, so he actually did some shit, which including unveiling his push, his intention to spearhead a reform of the Supreme Court. Talking about term limits. Talking about doing some stuff to reverse that whole presidential immunity thing. Something that he himself right now enjoys. Now, if I was him, and these are my final months as president, it's my final 100 days officially as president until the election, and then my final days until January 20th, when the next person officially takes over, be it Kamala Harris or Trump or whomever, that someone shows up, no one else is going to show up. But if I was him, I would EU all day, all night, especially to the Supreme Court. Some things will stick, some things won't, but it will be Joe Biden in his last stand for this country. We'll see if any of that occurs, but I just wanted to do this as a once again reminder about the concepts of DEI, that Kamala Harris is a DEI hire, and all the criticisms that she has been garnering the last few days that has nothing to do with her credentials, has nothing to do with her education, her career, her history, has nothing to do with the legit problems that anyone could have of Kamala Harris. No, we can't hire her because she's a DEI hire. We can't elect her. She doesn't know what she's doing. She slept her way to the top. She had too many abortions. Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. And even if all that was true, it still makes her better than Donald Trump. Tell me I'm wrong. Or you would if you were actually here having this conversation. Ranter rants. DOJ rant is always rising. Oh well. I tried.